You're watching a Highwire Media podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Big D Breakdown. I'm your host as always, Larry Lease or Lawrence, either one works. And this week we dive into all the latest headlines coming out of week one. Before we dive in, give me your thoughts on all the topics we covered in the comment section below, and give me your predictions on how you think Dallas will do moving forward. And with that, let's dive into today's first topic. Dak Prescott's 2025 debut was spoiled by a player that no one saw coming. Just like everyone expected, the Dallas Cowboys had the reigning Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles on the ropes in the first game of the season. The Cowboys entered Week 1 as one of the biggest underdogs in the league, and that was mostly due to the fact that the team made the shocking decision to trade pass rusher Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers. But what everyone seems to have forgotten over the course of the offseason is just how good Dak Prescott is. Prescott reminded everybody just how good he is, even in defeat, and it was the most unlikely player who ended up spoiling what could have been a signature road division win. That player is none other than superstar wide receiver CeeDee Lamb. The box score looks like just another day at the office for Lamb, who caught 7 passes for 110 yards at 15.7 yards per catch. Unfortunately, those parts of the box score don't tell the whole story. It was Lamb who dropped 3 crucial passes in this game for the Cowboys on absolutely perfect throws from Dak Prescott. The degree of difficulty was different for each, but Lamb has the 3rd highest salary per year of any receiver in the league, and the 3rd most guaranteed money for any receiver in league history. Even though nobody can be expected to be perfect, there were plays to be made, and Lamb literally dropped the ball on 3 separate occasions. Those are plays Lamb is going to want to have back, especially when you consider the outcome of the game. The Cowboys had a chance to go down the field and take the lead late in the 4th quarter, but that 4th down throw from Prescott to Lamb hit the ground. It's only the first game of the season, so there's still plenty of time to turn things around, and frankly, nobody really expected the Cowboys to be as competitive as they were, even with the caveat that Jalen Carter got kicked out of the game for spitting on Prescott. But this was a chance, in Prescott's return from injury last year, to really make a statement. The Cowboys have one of the best quarterbacks in the game, and Lamb is one of the best receivers in the game. Those 2 guys are capable of carrying this team when it's needed. So it hurts even more when Lamb doesn't come through against a team like the Eagles. This was a chance for the storyline after Week 1 to be all about Prescott returning to form and making the Cowboys forget about Micah Parsons quickly. Unfortunately, Lamb let his quarterback down, and he's going to have to find a way to make it up for it in Week 2. And now, some tragic news. Cowboys are... Unfortunately, the Cowboys open Week 2 with devastating injury blow to a summer star. The Dallas Cowboys might be 0-1, but they are taking a lot of positives into their Week 2 game against the New York Giants, a team they have dominated for the last 10 years. Given how New York's offensive line looked in Sunday's loss to the Commanders, the Cowboys' defensive front could be primed to feast. It will be interesting to see if Mozzie Smith is active after he was a healthy scratch to open the season. What is definitive, though, is that Dallas will be without Perrion Winfrey once again due to his back injury. In fact, it will be a while before Winfrey takes the field again, as the Cowboys put him on injured reserve on Tuesday, knocking him out for at least the next 4 weeks. This is a devastating break for Winfrey, who earned his spot on the 53-man roster with an exceptional summer. He was arguably the Cowboys' most impactful rotational defensive lineman in the preseason, a performance that backed up everything reported during training camp. Teams are allowed to return as many as 8 players from injured reserve during the regular season. There's nothing to suggest Winfrey's injury will end his season, but the earliest he can return is October 6th. That begs the question of what Dallas will do with the open spot on both the active and game day roster. Mozzie Smith is a logical candidate to replace Winfrey on the game day roster, but Brian Schottenheimer noted after Week 1 that he needs to see more consistency from the former first-round pick, saying, quote, "Mozzie is going to play a lot of really good football. He's not even begun to reach his peak. But the consistency has not been there, and therefore, if your philosophy is compete every day, then that's what you have to do. Make those decisions. As far as the active roster is concerned, Ryan Flournoy makes a lot of sense. The second-year receiver was activated from the practice squad for Week 1. He only has 2 more elevations before he must be signed to the 53-man roster if Dallas wants him to play a 4th game. The coaching staff trusts Ryan to contribute on special teams, but there might be a role for him in the receiver rotation after Jalen Tolbert put forth embarrassing effort against the Eagles. The Cowboys have plenty of options at their disposal, but it's hard not to feel for Winfrey for all the work he put in to make the team. And hopefully he can get back on the field soon. And now we're going to take a look at 2 winners and 2 losers from Week 1. The Dallas Cowboys came within just a few plays of upsetting the reigning Super Bowl champion Eagles in Week 1, but they just couldn't make that one last play to flip the game. Still, there's a lot to be encouraged about with this squad coming out of the first game of the season, so we're going to take a look at 2 winners and 2 losers coming out of a wild Week 1 contest between 2 heated NFC East rivals. So, starting off, winner, Dak Prescott at quarterback. This was not the biggest game statistically for Prescott, as he did not throw a touchdown and didn't even cross 200 passing yards. But anyone who watched the game knows that Prescott was magnificent. He had total command of the offense and finally looked fully recovered from his serious hamstring issues. Prescott had a couple of passes late that sailed on him, but when it mattered, he delivered strikes to keep the Cowboys in the game. He'll need his receivers to step up more going forward, but Dallas fans should rest easy knowing that the number 1 quarterback is back and looks to be moving as well as he has in the past 5 years. Next up, Javonte Williams at running back. One of the biggest concerns about the Cowboys coming into the season was their running game, and specifically, who would be running the ball. But Javonte Williams looked fresh and had a lot of success against the Eagles in Week 1. While the overall numbers don't look that great for Williams, 15 carries for 54 yards, Williams did convert 2 short yardage touchdown runs and kept the chains moving. He had an 80% success rate as a runner, which is unheard of in the NFL. Williams isn't going to be a home run hitter in Dallas, but he can be a physical between the tackle runner who can help keep the offense on track. And now for our losers. Starting off, CeeDee Lamb. It's hard to call a receiver a loser after posting a 100-yard game and after drawing a key defensive pass interference call, but that is because of what we expect from CeeDee Lamb. The Cowboys' top receiver had 3 key drops, including a huge one on the final drive that would have put his team in scoring range. There was another failed reception on the final offensive play of the game, where Lamb was unable to bring in a pass near the sideline on 4th down. The Cowboys have built their entire offense around Lamb, and he had some huge moments in this game, but they need him to be better. If he catches 1 or 2 of those passes, the Cowboys are likely 1-0, and we feel much differently about their 2025 outlook. Lamb has promised to be better, and we shall see if he fixes his drop issue in Week 2. Next, Kenneth Murray at linebacker. The Cowboys' defense got off to a very slow start, but things picked back up in the second half, and they were able to string together some stops. But there was one obvious player who struggled, and that was Kenneth Murray. The former first-round pick from Oklahoma looked lost all night, and his inability to break down and tackle in the open field cost Dallas several times. Murray is known for being a reckless player, and his lack of discipline was on full display Thursday night. While he's the most physically gifted linebacker on the roster, it might be time for Matt Eberflus to explore some other options. And now, on to our next topic. Brian Schottenheimer's reasons for benching Jaden Blue confirms the fans' worstest fears. Ozzie Smith being a healthy scratch in Week 1 raised some eyebrows, but it wasn't all that unexpected as he was clearly on the fringe of the 53-man roster. Jaden Blue, on the other hand, being a healthy scratch, sent shockwaves through the Dallas Cowboy fan base. Blue got banged up in training camp with an ankle injury, and he re-injured the same ankle again in preseason. It was speculated that Blue didn't sit up because Brian Schottenheimer didn't want the rookie to continue ramping up on a wet field. It turns out there aren't any concerns about Blue's health. Schottenheimer was asked why Blue was inactive, and it all but confirms Cowboys fans' worst fears. Schottenheimer said, quote, "Young players, it hits at different times. He's extremely talented. You have to earn your chance to get out there. There has to be consistency." Schottenheimer used the word consistency to explain why he benched Mozzie Smith. And while Blue looked far more consistent than Smith during training camp and preseason, it's likely Schottenheimer was referring to the nuances of the position, whether it's pass protection, mastering the playbook, or simply knowing where to line up in certain formations. That's likely the only reason Blue didn't see the field in Week 1. The Texas product is clearly the Cowboys' most explosive runner. So if he's not playing, it's because he's falling short in the details that don't show up in the box score. The Athletic reported before the 2025 draft that Blue has to learn how to be a professional. In the same vein, Cowboys assistant Glenn Smith spoke to coaches over the summer who believe the former Longhorn is borderline lazy. It turns out those concerns weren't unfounded. If fans can recognize Blue's talent, you can bet Schottenheimer and his staff do too. The first-year head coach wouldn't sideline a playmaker like Blue unless he felt it was necessary to send a message. While Javonte Williams was awesome in Week 1, Miles Sanders should arguably his benched after his costly red zone fumble. Unfortunately, that won't happen until Blue shows some improvement. And now we're going to take a look at 3 questions following the Cowboys' devastating loss to the Eagles. Some would argue that Dallas' season-opening loss to the Eagles answered more questions than it raised. There were so many unknowns ahead of 2025, and Week 1 gave us several things to feel better about for the road ahead. But in the end, the standings don't care about your feelings. The Cowboys are now 0-1 overall and in the NFC East, so there's work to be done. So these are 3 questions that Dallas has to answer before hosting the Giants on Sunday and for the remainder of the season. And no, will CeeDee Lamb keep dropping passes is not one of them, because we know, even though he did, he won't. So, starting off, can the pass rush improve? There are several reasons that the Cowboys only registered 1 sack in Philly, courtesy of Marshawn Kneeland. The biggest one was Jalen Hurts, who was fantastic that night with his pocket presence and decision-making. But just last year, the Eagles allowed 45 sacks, putting them right in the middle of all teams. So it's certainly possible to make life harder for the reigning Super Bowl MVP. Of course, this topic is inflamed by what went down with Micah Parsons, but he's not walking through that door, so let's talk about who needs to. I'm going to butcher his name, and apologies, but to make it easy, I'm just going to say Donovan E. showed his potential beating offensive tackle Jordan M. more than once. Against most teams, he would have recorded his first sack. He nearly forced Hurts in an incompletion in the fourth quarter, but Saquon Barkley made a superstar catch. The nature of the game also limited guys like Osa Udowizi and Solomon Thomas from being able to attack up the middle. Keeping Hurts contained became a problem early, and the Eagles were rarely forced into clear passing situations. But if Kenny Clark and the defensive front can shut down the run like they did in the second half, most other teams will get more one-dimensional and make life easier for the pass rushers. So yes, it's certainly fixable. Defensive coordinator Matt Eberflus will get more familiar with his options and the best way to utilize them as the season goes on. Kneeland will hopefully blossom with more playing time, and most future opponents won't present a challenge that the Eagles do. Dallas appears to have improved its overall run defense from last year, but now has to prove that they didn't just trade one weakness for another. Next, is Javonte Williams better than we thought? One might look at Williams' 15 carries for 54 yards, only a 3.6 average, and think it was a bad start to his Cowboys tenure. But there's plenty of circumstances in those numbers, and the eye test was a more accurate gauge of how our new number 1 running back actually fared. Both of Williams' touchdowns were on 1st and 1 carries, which hurt his average. Take those away, and he averaged 4 on the other 13. You give him the touch on Miles Sanders' 49-yard run, which was mostly due to blocking, and his average goes up tremendously. Overall, Williams displayed good vision, decisiveness, and the power to finish runs for extra yards. He looked closer to his 2021 rookie form than the post-injury version we saw the last 2 years in Denver. Now, we have to acknowledge that everyone on the Cowboys offense benefited from Jalen Carter's ejection. That's probably truer for Williams than anyone. Next week, against Dexter Lawrence and the Giants' defensive front, will probably be a better test of just what this run game can really do in 2025. And finally, will George Pickens keep his cool? Only 4 targets in a game is low compared to what Pickens was used to in Pittsburgh. While he knows he's not the franchise receiver in Dallas, it's still a contract year for a guy who's already seen his relationship with one team go sour. It's been all fun and games during the offseason when practice reps are generally going to go as designed, but in the regular season, if Prescott leans more on Lamb, Ferguson and his more familiar receivers, will Pickens keep being a good citizen? This isn't a prediction, but just a logical concern given how Pickens' last marriage ended. Hopefully, future games allow for a more balanced attack. The Eagles' winning time of possession by about 10 minutes limited how much work Dallas had to spread around, and given their familiarity with the opponent, it made sense for Prescott and Lamb to do their thing. And hopefully, at the end of the day, Pickens sees that too. So let me know your thoughts on all the topics we covered in the comments section below. And of course, if you want to support the channel, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/thebigd. And we'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, Game Time. If you're looking for the best place to find tickets to the Cowboys, you need to check out Game Time today. Use the link in the description today and go score tickets to the Dallas Cowboys. And with that, thank you so much for watching and listening. We'll see you next time.